Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Spanish Sling. Our main goal is to bridge the gap between Spanish and Singaporean companies. And today we have a special guest to do so, Verónica Irazabal. Welcome to the Spanish Sling.
Thank you very much.
Verónica has been working as a lawyer in Spain, the UK and Singapore. And she's also a board member of the Spanish-Singaporean Chamber of Commerce. So, Verónica, I'm sure you have a lot of insights about the legal sector in Singapore. So how is the legal sector and in which way the Spanish legal system is different from the Singaporean one?
So the Spanish legal system is a civil law system, as you know, and as well as other European countries. But Singapore is a common law system and is based on English common law. They basically follow more what case law and what judges judge in certain matters, as opposed to civil law countries, which are very much codified and they have very exhaustive laws. So I would say that's the main difference. Also, Singapore, as you probably know, so is a center for arbitration. Which is very, very interesting because it attracts many businesses and legal cases, which is very interesting to see. That I could give you an answer for until tomorrow, but I suppose that would be my answer. Yeah.
Well, so it's a huge difference between the Spanish and the Singaporean one.
It is, yeah.
So how can a Spanish lawyer practice law so easily in Singapore? Is it really difficult to start learning the Singaporean system?
Well, I would say that the main advantage that common law has is that it's very dynamic. So in my case, at least, I found it very easy to adapt. In order to practice law here in Singapore, you can't practice Singaporean law as such. You have to be registered as a foreign lawyer. You technically are only qualified to practice the law from your own country, but Singapore allows you to advise on certain areas, such as corporate law or employment law in certain instances, but only the locals who are qualified here as lawyers can practice things, areas like criminal law or civil law, family law, that I cannot do. So that's probably the main difference. Also, like foreign law firms can register as with the law society here, and they practice foreign law. That's the main difference as opposed to local firms. Yeah.
Oh, so those are important tips for Spanish lawyers who want to practice in Singapore.
Indeed.
And how many, if you know, European legal companies or legal firms work in Singapore? Are they a lot?
Well, yeah, they are actually. Many of them actually partner with local firms like us, like us in Luther, and many of them set up joint ventures, which allow them to practice local and foreign law. Which that's the main difference between a purely local firm. Foreign firms attract a lot of business and a lot of clients from abroad because we kind of try to become like cultural translators in terms of business and local issues that could arise from establishing themselves here. So yeah, I would say in terms of your question, probably, I don't know, tens of hundreds of firms here in Singapore.
Wow,
I would say, yeah.
Wow, all right. And so for the newcomers, the new firms that may want to establish in Singapore, is it really easy to start a company in Singapore?
Well, to start a company in Singapore is fairly easy, I would say, yeah. It's a company can be registered within days. The main an interesting fact is that there has to be a locally resident director. So that in terms of compliance, I would say that's the most difficult one to tick for companies. But there's service providers like us, for example, that we provide nominee director services, which we act as a director until someone from the company from headquarters can come and act as that local director. As I said, it's really, really easy. However, since COVID started, it has been specifically difficult to bring people from abroad, from headquarters to oversee the starting of the operations in Singapore. So I would say that that's the main hiccup that they could see. But apart from that, it is really simple. It's quite cheap to establish a company here in Singapore. Yeah.
And well, when establishing a company, and then in the long term, I'm sure that companies will be interested in taxes and the legal barriers. So to start with, what are the main tax differences between Spain and Singapore?
Well, that's what makes Singapore extremely attractive for business, because corporate tax is 17% as opposed to Spanish tax, which is generally 25%. Also, Singapore has different schemes for startups. The main one is they give them like a 3-year kind of concession, so it's almost tax-free for 3 years for startups here in Singapore, which is really interesting. So yeah, that's probably what makes Singapore very, very attractive in comparison with other countries also in the region. Also, I mean, in terms of an individual, I just talked about corporate tax, but in an individual level, also it's really low. A normal person that, I don't know, up to I wouldn't be able to give you the range, but it's considerably low at an individual level. Also, obviously, there is downsides to being a foreigner here in Singapore. As you know, we don't have access to Social Security, what is called CPF contributions, which Singaporeans and PRs need to pay. They do receive, benefits in return, but healthcare is private. We have to go to private healthcare ourselves to be seen by a doctor. So yeah, sorry, I've just kind of like gone.
No, that's so interesting
Yeah.
for all of them. And what are the legal barriers for Spanish who want to start in Singapore?
Well,
Is it very difficult?
it's not difficult. You just need to know. Thankfully, the law it's pretty straightforward here in Singapore, especially in terms of corporate law and how to register a business in compliance. You just probably the main legal barrier is knowing that that those laws exist and having a good advisor that tells you about it. And as I said, also, like, probably one of the main legal barriers right now is in terms of employment law, and bringing people, foreigners here in Singapore that that can start the operations of that business headquarters in Spain. You need a strong locals to. You need to try to find locals, because it's kind of becoming more difficult for European companies to bring people. So I would say that that is definitely something that companies have to look out for and need to really be aware that Singapore is shifting that kind of behavior towards building what they call a strong Singaporean core.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say that that's definitely it. Yeah.
And what about the other way around? So how about Singaporeans who want to start a business in Spain? Would they face legal barriers or difficulties?
Well, I mean, as I said, the legal system in Spain it's a bit more complicated than the Singaporean one. So again, you need strong advisors and strong qualified lawyers that can basically help you navigate. And also, Spain is part of the European Union, so if Singapore company wants to introduce their products to Spain and also interested to introduce them to the rest of the EU, then they also need to be aware of European Union law. And also now with Brexit, if they want to kind of do business with the UK, it's becoming a bit more tricky. So I would say that just find a good consultancy firm, lawyers that can help you navigate the waters.
Exactly, so a good advisor. And any last advice for the Singaporeans who want to start a business in Spain, and the other way around, so the Spanish who want to start a business in Singapore? Any last tips?
Any last tips?
Just a good advisor, right?
A really good advisor, yes. Just basically try to. I mean, know exactly what is it that you want to do in the country, like have a real clear vision of because in the end it all comes to financial and commercial terms, right? So in order for you not to lose money in a way, you need to know exactly what is it that you want to establish in the country, and know the legal system very, very well, because I feel like some people actually overlook that. They just have an idea, they want to establish themselves and export the idea abroad, but you need to be aware of the environment, and not also legally but also culturally, because that's really important. Culture and how to relate to the locals and exactly. So I would say that.
And finally, what is your vision for the legal sector, for the future of the legal sector in Singapore?
Well, Singapore is kind of becoming more of a digital and financial sector hub. I mean, it was already a financial sector hub, but it's shifting towards fintech, right? So I feel like law firms, which we are already doing, have to kind of adapt with that and learn about the cryptocurrencies and all that all those issues that are definitely arising nowadays. So I feel like it is becoming definitely more towards that trend, that there's more and more lawyers that specialize in cryptocurrency and specialize in blockchain, and there's so many startups nowadays that do that. So I feel like that's what we are kind of shifting towards, and we really need to adapt.
Wow, yeah. Thank you so much. It's so important to have that into account. So thank you so much, because I think now everyone has a clear vision of the legal sector in Singapore. Thank you so much, Verónica.
Yes, no problem. Thank you for having me.